Hello everyone, welcome to Diplomatic Briefing. After Trump returned to the White House, his cuts to federal agencies have stirred up quite a bit of controversy. Among them, Voice of America, VOA, is now facing an unprecedented survival crisis. According to the Old Times report, the Trump administration has submitted a plan to the U.S. Congress to slash the number of VOA staff from about 1,400 journalists and administrative personnel down to just 18 people. Previously, about one-third of these 1,400 employees had already been laid off, leaving only 11 people in the radio and television department, 2 staff each for the services targeting Iran, China, and Afghanistan, plus 1 chief executive officer. The scale is less than 2 out of 2 of the original size. This drastic layoff plan stems from an executive order signed by Trump in March, aiming to reduce the size of the federal government, eliminate waste, and limit the transition of power. The U.S. Agency for Global Media, USAGM, which is the parent organization of Voice of America, is also on the list for staff cuts. This agency is responsible for managing Voice of America, Radio Free Asia, and other U.S. external propaganda outlets. These media outlets are often accused of interfering in other countries' internal affairs and even inciting color revolutions under the banner of promoting democracy and freedom. The White House said it will eliminate the non-statutory functions of these agencies and reduce their operations to the minimum required by law. Trump's ally, Rick, as a special advisor to USAGM, signed this layoff plan. He emphasized that the plan complies with the judge's order and legal requirements, but only retains the statutory minimum staffing. Voice of America claims to serve 350 million people worldwide in 49 languages, so such a streamlined staff size is clearly insufficient to support its operations. Journalist Vida Guala publicly criticized that 18 people simply cannot produce content for hundreds of millions of viewers, and said she would file a lawsuit against Rick and the relevant agencies. Trump's crackdown on Voice of America is nothing new. Back in 2020, he openly criticized VOA's reporting as disgusting, accused it of failing to tell America's story well, and even claimed it was helping China with its propaganda. On March 18 this year, during a regular press conference hosted by Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning, a Bloomberg reporter asked about Trump planning to shut down Voice of America, Radio Free Asia, and other similar organizations. Chinese media, in their reports, described Voice of America as a factory of lies that incites conflict. What was the response from the spokesperson of the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs on this? Mao Ning responded by saying that she would not comment on Chinese media reports, nor would she comment on domestic policy adjustments in the United States. However, she did say that the problematic track record of some U.S. media outlets in their China-related reporting, as mentioned by the reporter, is no secret. In conclusion, the U.S. government recognizing its own mouthpieces is because Trump wants to push back against left-leaning politicians, but this does not mean that Washington's strategy to contain China will change. However, the various pieces of information revealed during the significant downsizing of Voice of America allow the whole world to once again see clearly the methods the U.S. uses to instigate color revolutions everywhere. In addition, looking at how the Trump administration is cracking down on China's leading global chip manufacturers, the CEO of Dutch lithography giant ASML, Peter Wennink, gave a rare interview to the New York Times on June 5. He warned that the U.S. chip export ban not only weakens ASML's dominant position in the semiconductor industry, but could also backfire and further encourage China to become more self-reliant and resilient. The report says that this semiconductor giant, headquartered in the Netherlands, has found itself caught up in the U.S.-China trade war, becoming a pawn in America's geopolitical game. In recent years, the U.S. government has continuously tightened restrictions on chip exports to China, which has seriously affected ASML's trade with China. Just last month, U.S. President Trump announced a 50% tariff on European goods exported to the U.S., which will increase ASML's costs. 2 days later, he suspended these tariffs again. Peter Wennink, who just took over as CEO last year, is deeply worried. In an interview, he said bluntly, "A large part of these things are simply beyond our control." According to the New York Times, Peter Wennink initially kept a low profile regarding the geopolitical challenges facing the company. Now, he is expressing his concerns more openly, believing that U.S. government policies could disrupt supply chains that have been established for decades, slow down the development of artificial intelligence and other technologies, and push China to develop its own domestic semiconductor industry. In the end, this could weaken ASML's dominant position and harm Western interests. The report points out that China has already started developing some of its own lithography equipment. Although China still has a long way to go to catch up with ASML's technology, he said that no matter how many obstacles are put in place, those you try to stop will only work even harder to succeed. As chips are increasingly integrated into all aspects of daily life, including smartphones, cars, toys, and refrigerators, ASML's business has also been booming. Recently, companies like OpenAI, Microsoft, and Google have been building large-scale data centers around the world, using a huge number of AI chips produced with ASML equipment. According to available information, their company's revenue reached a record-breaking $32.3 billion last year. However, ASML is still overshadowed by issues like geopolitics, U.S. tariffs, and export controls. According to reports, some people are questioning whether the chip demand driven by the AI boom can be sustained, and whether ASML's latest machines are really worth the price. Over the past year, the company's stock price has dropped by 25%. Fukai said that Trump's tariff policies have brought extra challenges to ASML, increased instability, and undermined efforts to build domestic chip factories in the U.S. He said, if you want to produce chips in your own country, you have to make sure the costs are reasonable. If there are tariffs, of course the costs will go up. At the moment, Fukai is working hard to strengthen ASML's industry leadership. In addition to publicly criticizing the consequences of Trump's trade policies, he has also expanded the company's lobbying teams in Washington, Brussels, and The Hague. He said that the EU and the Netherlands could do more to protect ASML and the semiconductor industry from the impact of the US-China trade friction. He said, no doubt, we always hope that someone will stand up for us. I think for Europe, and for the Netherlands, ASML is a big topic. This is truly an opportunity. While Fukai is asking for help from others, he is also relying on himself. According to him, he and his team maintain regular contact with government officials in Washington, Brussels, and The Hague. The message he conveys to them is, the semiconductor supply chain is globally integrated, and trying to influence the policy of a single country could slow down technological development and drive up costs for all countries. He said that the U.S. export ban could backfire, and warned against using national security as an excuse to justify protectionist policies. He pointed out that instead of just focusing on suppressing economic competitors like China, it would be better to concentrate on innovation. The report mentioned that global chip industry executives are pushing back against U.S. trade policies that restrict the sale of their products and services, and Fukai is one of them. Last month, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang also publicly stated that U.S. export controls on semiconductors to China have already failed, and the harm caused to American companies far outweighs the impact on China. In May, the Trump administration added NVIDIA's China-specific H20 chip to the control list. In an interview, Jensen Huang described the U.S. government's chip restrictions on China as extremely costly, saying it has already caused his company to lose $15 billion in sales. He bluntly stated that the idea of stopping other countries from acquiring American technology by restricting the spread of AI technology is fundamentally wrong. If American companies don't compete in the Chinese market, then Chinese technology will spread across the world. Previously, CNBC published an article stating that many analysts and industry insiders believe the U.S. chip restrictions aimed at curbing China's AI development actually do more harm than good, causing greater damage to American companies and, on the contrary, allowing competitors like China to accelerate their development and narrow the gap with the U.S. in AI capabilities. During his recent visit to China, Dutch Foreign Minister Wop Hoekstra mentioned that the Chinese side hopes to ease export controls on ASML. In response, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning has stated that China has repeatedly emphasized that the semiconductor industry is highly globalized and the formation of supply chains is the result of choices made by the market and enterprises. For some time now, certain countries have been broadening the concept of national security, abusing export controls and long-arm jurisdiction, which seriously threatens the stability of global industrial and supply chains. China and the Netherlands are highly complementary in the semiconductor sector, and their cooperation is mutually beneficial and a win-win. Both sides will maintain close communication through existing channels. China is willing to work together with the international community, including the Netherlands, to uphold openness and cooperation, and jointly safeguard the stability of the global semiconductor supply and industrial chains. The high-profile interview given by ASML's executives came as a bit of a surprise to the outside world. Looking at a few points, firstly, although the global chip industry has a huge market, there aren't actually that many players. As the leader in lithography machines, ASML is definitely well informed. Companies are extremely sensitive to changes in the market, and they might also be feeling the pressure from China's industry catching up, maybe even overtaking them sooner than expected. Secondly, right now the relationship between the EU and Trump has soured because of tariff issues. As one of Europe's leading companies, ASML is stepping up, hoping the EU can stand up to US pressure, and also hoping to continue or even expand its business with China. Thirdly, Trump's reciprocal tariffs have disrupted the balance of global trade, and have also put the US in a position where both its hard and soft power are being overshadowed by China. As multinational companies, they've never really been able to stand Trump's brash style. Now that the US is in a weaker position, CEOs of multinationals like ASML are more than happy to step up and make their stance clear. In conclusion, the most important thing for China is to strengthen itself.